This is a Bay Original podcast.
Hello everyone, my name is Clayton and I'm your host of today's podcast, Voices of Pride. This is a collaboration between 897 Bay and Allied Rainbow Communities, organizers of Malta Pride and online portal gaymalta.com. In this podcast, we want to bring voices from different LGBTIQ individuals to talk about anything and everything that reflects us and as individuals, members of society, and as a global community. Today, here with me, I have Baryn Jacobsen. Hi, Baryn. Welcome, and thank you for accepting to be part of this. Let's state the obvious. Today, I'm not going to switch in Maltese, so you're not Maltese. And so could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, no, my name's Baryn, obviously. I'm South African, but I grew up in the UK. I've been in Malta for 7 years, and I'm also openly gay. Anything else?
You work in...
I work in iGaming. I'm a risk analyst now. I do the fraud detections.
Nice.
I get to live out my Gossip Girl fantasy.
All right, cool. What made you choose Malta as a destination?
I didn't choose Malta. Malta chose me.
Okay.
I moved here with my family when I just turned 17. My parents relocated here. I didn't like it in the beginning. I tried to leave. I tried everything I could, and then realized once I'd actually left, I quite liked it. So I came back, and I'm still here 6 years later.
Nice. Good. And so tell us, you told us that you live as an openly gay man. So tell us about your experience being an openly gay man here in Malta, even from a kind of expat or foreigner's perspective.
Well, I came out while I was in Malta. I'm 24 now, and I came out when I was 21. Was the best thing I ever did. Wasn't the best way for me to have done it, but coming out made it a lot easier to sort of integrate with the community, I think, and get involved.
You said you didn't do it in the best way. Could you please tell us more? Or
I was very drunk, and it was like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd missed a flight to the UK, and it all just came out in front of my parents, so it wasn't the most of planned things. It's quite awkward, but I mean, we were over it within the next day, so we moved past quickly.
And you were 17 back then?
No, I was 21 when that happened. 21. Yeah.
And how did how did they take it?
They were quite good. I mean, they must have expected it. It wasn't something I'd hidden. I mean, publicly, mainly just hidden from them, especially when I moved to Malta. Mm-hmm. I found it a lot easier to be open about it with the people in public that I met. I just kept it secret personally.
And what is your impression of the LGBTIQ community here in Malta? What are your thoughts, your experiences? What do you feel that there is like a lack of?
I don't think there's a lack of anything in Malta. It's quite welcoming, first of all, but I think that's in the culture in general of the island. It's very inclusive. There are everyone from every end of the spectrum in the community here in this island. And that's part of my favorite thing about it. You can meet people from all sorts of different countries, all sorts of different backgrounds, with a whole bunch of different experiences. And it's very interesting to see even the young community and the elderly, like how it all just merges together. Kind of weekend events are the best places to see that sort of thing. It's also why I get involved in them myself. It's learning constantly for me. I take it. It's education for me.
So Baryn, let's go a bit more personal. Tell us a bit about dating here in Malta. What is it like, and is it easy? Is it hard to make some form of meaningful connections?
I think dating in general is hard. I didn't have much experience of it back in the UK. I don't have much experience of it here either, to be fair. I was the kind of person who lived on Grindr for many years, especially while I was in the closet. That was my experience of the community until I came out, essentially. But meaningful connections are always there, whether you're looking for a relationship or not. People, if there's a spark between you, whether it's platonic or romantic or whatever, if it's there, it's there. I just think it's up to the people to feel it themselves and go for it.
Nice. And I don't know if you've read, but it made quite the headlines. Some weeks ago, we read about how a gay man was catfished and attacked via Grindr. So what do you make of this? Is it common? Maybe it happened to you or something similar?
Catfished, yes, I think a lot of people on Malta would have been. I don't necessarily think people have met the catfishes. I mean, I have no idea who catfished me. I have my inklings, but it does definitely happen a lot. You see it mostly with, I think, the younger community, and probably, not that we have a word for it, but the straights that are actually gay community.
Okay.
That's just my experience, though. There's probably hundreds of others of everyone. But I do think, not that it's a necessity, but people always have their reasons to do things. If it's their way of expressing how they feel, not that it's a good thing to express, they might need it. I mean, rather the attack, okay, was a different story because he was attacked. But I think if people have a way to express it in a safe way, it's essentially harmless.
Okay. So would you say that, for example, Grindr and any other dating app is essentially a tool, or would you say is it bad, all bad? Or
I think that depends on how you use it. I mean, it's the internet. You have to be clever with it. You don't want to throw out any personal information. You don't want to throw out your locations to random people at any time, whether you're on Grindr, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Google. It's a thing of the internet. It's going to happen always. There's not much that you can do to stop it. You just have to be wise and educate yourself. And if it does happen, you learn from the mistakes, learn from the red flags you see on the first time.
what would be your advice? So basically, we're already saying this, but anyone using Grindr, maybe someone who's still new, someone who's inexperienced, and any other dating app, for what it's worth.
Trust your gut instinct. If something feels off, I mean, everyone always says it. If it feels iffy, there's something there. You wouldn't have the doubt without valid cause. Your gut is a good tool to use when you're using a tool like Grindr. Always be safe, be honest, be open to any sort of connection, because Grindr is a tool, yes, for what most people use to hook up with, but you can make many good friends on there. People use it for all sorts of things these days. You look at other countries, people use it as marketing for companies, for brands. It has its uses. It's still here. There's a reason why. It's not like it's going to go anywhere, I don't think, in the future. I think it's just a sense of adapting how you want to use it to how it suits you.
Baryn, you also said, you wrote and you were interviewed recently. You divulged about your mental health struggles. You also mentioned that you were institutionalized for some period of time. Could you tell us a bit more about that experience?
So I was institutionalized, but every time I did it myself.
Yeah.
I put myself in. It was mainly because, and I didn't realize this at the time, it's only after coming out and going to therapy and stuff that I realized I lived life at like 100 miles an hour, never stopped. I'd lived in 3 different countries by the age of 17. I knew I was gay from the age of 11. Not that I would have wanted to admit it, but it does affect you, knowing that things are different to how you're raised, and keeping secrets like that from your family are a big load on your shoulders to carry. That on top of like just normal things of everyday life that we all have, whether you're gay or straight or whichever side of the coin, I had to just take some time to breathe. And every time I would put myself in, it was with that in my head that I wanted to just go, and it was like a holiday for my head. Like you can go on holiday to anywhere you want to relax, but it's what you actually do with inside your head that matters. And Mount Carmel for me was a good place to silence the noise in my head and then like give myself time to think. A lot like how lockdown has been for a lot of people now. It was like a prequel to it for me, essentially. But I did struggle. I struggled for 10 years almost with it. But I think, as I said, when I came out, I was very drunk. It was a culmination of, I didn't know if I was ever going to come out at the time. I mean, I was out to people that I worked with. I was out to people I went to school with. And it was like living a double life was not fun, not easy. Loved Hannah Montana growing up. It's not what it looks like when you actually have to go through it. And I think a lot of people relate to that because we all keep secrets. I mean, whether it's your sexuality, whether it's your mental health, it's stuff that people should talk about. And funnily enough, Grindr was a good tool for me for that because it helped me to meet many people. At times it was okay for the obvious thing, but those connections still led on to meaningful parts that helped me resolve and acknowledge my issues. I realized a lot of the time that I would go to Grindr to seek validation, to fill like a void of if I was lonely. It wasn't that I wanted what I was having. It was just that I wanted something to distract me or to fill the time or just to pass the time. But there's, I mean, it still goes on. I still have issues. They don't go away, but I just took time to breathe. And Mount Carmel, as bad as people talk about it, it is the only place on the island that we have for it. There's nowhere else we can really turn to. So I do think it's an important part, especially for the community, because it's not, I had my issues, other people are going to have similar things or even worse, or whatever they have, it could end up with them going to the same place. It could end up with them trying to find help, and these places need to be pushed to the forefront and put in the conversation as well. It's not just a case of you go in and you come out and you're fixed. You spend years, you spend the rest of your life trying to deal with that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a very important word there, validation. What can you make of that? Like, how important is it for us as a community, as individuals?
I mean, we stand out, whether we like to admit it or not, and as much as we can try and hide things, some people are good at it, but there are still obvious things that'll poke out and make people turn their heads when you're walking in the street. I mean, I've never had it happen myself, but I know people that aren't gay that have been called poofter on the streets, kind of thing. We can't hide. We have to deal with it. And the validation, I think, comes down to the fact that we're not validated by society all the time. It's not like, yeah, we have equality in some circumstances, but it's not a whole plain level field. It's not, I don't have the same, how can I explain it? I don't have the same choices and chances as everyone else. And it's, whether it's to do with my sexuality, whether it's to do with anyone's sexuality, it's not that it should even be a topic in my head. I don't think it should be something that we have to discuss, but we have to, because it's just the way that the world's been wired right now.
Yeah, I understand you. What do you think are the main challenges that the LGBTIQ community faces, maybe in Malta, from what you see around the world?
Validation, for one, but strength. I mean, we have strength in our numbers, we have strength in our community, but we don't have strength so much as straight people can, from what it appears, I mean, in my perspective, straight people can walk through life and get away with the stuff that we wish we could. I still don't feel comfortable holding hands in the public. I don't feel comfortable telling my boyfriend I love him in public. I mean, it scares me still. Like, I get the shakes and I'm 24 and I don't think that's a normal thing. But at the same time, I do accept and acknowledge that it's just how it is for now. And we all have to sort of realize that it's a give and take situation with that sort of stuff. It's
like, I understand you because I've been in a relationship for 13 years now. I'm actually married to my husband, and we never show any form of affection in public. We're always brought up with the idea that we have to assess our risk around us. So even from the age since we're 12, when we realize this conflict internally, we have to say, are we safe where we are? Even at this stage where we had to come out to our family, the closest support system, we think about the worst case scenario where we might get kicked out, and it happened to some members of the community as well. So the worst case scenario for some is actually a reality as well. And this doesn't end at coming out to your family or coming out once, but throughout your life, at work, with friends, with any random stranger. I mean, I also remember even with workmen in the house, you have to really be careful how you act about. So yeah, I totally get you with this, the need for validation, the need to feel safe. And I think it's going to be a continuous struggle for many of us.
I think that's the problem with things like Grindr. It's a perfect tool for what we should be needing right now, but it distracts from that because it is used for hookups and flings and things that don't mean anything. It's full of nonsense, but it could be full of a lot of good sense for us.
Actually, yes. Some years ago, I tried using Grindr as a NGO profile, and they shut me down after 2 days. So the idea was to have like a info stop for people wanting to ask any questions. And within those 2 days, I had several asking me, where can I get tested? How do I get tested? Even how to use condoms, what's PrEP, what's PEP? And any sort of other question that I said to myself, oh my God, we are really far back in educating because this information is not mainstreamed.
But even like, I went to high school in the UK. I was never shown how to use a condom. I was never told about how gay people could have sex. I knew because I was bullied and ridiculed about it when I was in denial of it, but nobody showed me that, like, this is the fact, this is how it happens, this is what you do, and this is life. I mean, I just understood that straight people have sex and they make life, and that is what happens, and I'm abnormal because I don't do that and I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I also felt like I was natural because these feelings they did just appear, but it wasn't like something triggered them. It was just how I was born, essentially.
Definitely. And I mean, even the fact that we are brought up with the idea that you have to bottom or you have to be the top. So this is all like information that as growing up, teenagers kind of feel overwhelming for me.
I didn't know what it meant in the beginning. Like, people would ask me, and I'd be like, what does this mean? Like, when it was explained to me, I thought, okay, my world is blown. But it's not something that crosses your mind until you get to it. And I think that's also dangerous for some people because, I mean, we all know people have their preferences. Some people do both. Some people choose one. Some people don't even like either.
Exactly.
But you don't know until you've gone into the situation. You put yourself there to try it. And with Grindr, you normally lead up to, I think for me, I was always assumed to be one because I was always younger. I mean, I was on Grindr at a very young age and I shouldn't have been. I realize that now. But I do think that because of that, I put myself in situations. I don't regret them, but they could have been different and they could have maybe had a bit more meaning if I was stopped and explained what to expect from them.
And this is what's happening, for example, in Hungary. The problem with stopping education, not allowing educators to teach about LGBTIQ history, sexuality. So it's, and I don't think it will stop at Hungary. It will still affect a few other countries before we can reach common sense.
But I mean, gay people are here.
Exactly.
Straight people are here. But look at the Romans. Look at how they were. I mean, I feel like people are just a bit embarrassed of that kind of history, that they don't want to look back at it because it's different to them now. We carried on for like hundreds of years doing one thing in one direction. People don't want to change. There's always a reluctancy to change. And I think there's a sort of revolution coming, maybe not so soon, but in the next few years or next few decades, that eventually there won't be a need to ask people's genders or for their pronouns. You'll just know because of how we're taught, how we're educated, how we raise our children. It's exciting, but it's also, I think, a shame to look back and think, much like how I look back at the elderly gay community of the UK, how they complain and say, we have it so much better. Nobody has it better. No one's going to have it better in the future because inside our heads it's a completely different story, but the reality that we have to go through is shared. And the only way that we can share it and understand it all is to speak and share relations with everyone. Grindr is a good starting point for it, but still has its downsides.
Definitely. Any words of wisdom you wish to impart?
Think with the head on your shoulders and not the one between your legs.
Definitely.
But also, like I said before, trust your gut. If you have a doubt there's no shame in asking someone if they're real, if they're being truthful or honest with you. It shows more respect for yourself than for anyone else, because that's who you have to look after at the end of the day, especially online. You're the only one there. You're the only one in that experience.
Yeah, nice. Anything else you want to add?
I think I'm good.
Good. All right. Thank you very much for listening to this edition. This broadcast was brought to you by Allied Rainbow Communities in collaboration with 897 Bay. If you would like to know more about us, visit us on gaymalta.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at ArcMalta. And feel free to put forward any questions to us, and we'll be there to support you. Thank you very much.
This is a Bay Original Podcast.